Hello, Corey here from the Bach Scholar YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to tell you what I think of Hanon and Hanon's exercises. I get asked a lot as a piano teacher what I think of Hanon. Should you do Hanon? Should you not do Hanon? And here's what I think. First of all, okay, let's look at this objectively. First of all, I have actually the Wikipedia page in front of me, the best source of information anywhere in the world, Wikipedia. I have Charles Louis Hanon here in front of me. Now, apparently, Hanon was a musician. Okay, he trained as an organist. He probably played some piano. He was an amateur musician at best. He was not a professional. He was not a concert pianist. Okay, that's the thing. He was not a concert pianist. He was not Franz Liszt. He was not Chopin. He was not even Czerny. Carl Czerny, who usually gets mentioned in the same sentence as Hanon, was a virtuoso pianist and knew how to write for the piano. He wrote excellent etudes for the piano. So when people ask, they'll often ask, is Czerny or Hanon better, as if they're one thing. They're two totally different things. Czerny was actually a very talented composer. Czerny was a great composer. I mean, not to the level of, quite to the level of Beethoven or Mozart, but Czerny was an excellent composer. He wrote serious music and he wrote exercises. Czerny knew the piano and he knew the hands and he knew the pianist's hands. He was a professional pianist. He was a virtuoso. He was a child prodigy. Hanon was none of these. Hanon was not a composer. He was not a virtuoso pianist, despite the title, the virtuoso pianist. Okay? So he was not a virtuoso pianist. He was an amateur organist at best. He served the Catholic Church, which is fine. It says here he became, I guess he became an elder of some kind in the church, in the Catholic Church, which is good. There's nothing wrong with that. But would you take advice on something from somebody who isn't an expert in that field? Hanon was no virtuoso. He was not a great pianist. Yet, pianists and teachers for probably 150 years or more than that have put so much stock into these exercises. And I get the impression that people think, I think most pianists and teachers think Hanon was like a Liszt. He was like a virtuoso pianist. He knew piano technique, and therefore these are great. Hanon was none of these. Hanon was not a composer. These are the only things he wrote were these finger exercises, which is fine. He wasn't a composer. He wasn't a virtuoso pianist. So why should we trust him? Why should we trust him? I don't know. I have no idea why we should trust him. For some reason, over the past century or so, the whole piano establishment has deified Hanon as if he's some sort of god, as if he were Franz Liszt and these were Liszt's exercises. They're not. They're not. Okay. Now that I've really come down on Hanon and really bashed him, I guess, as you could say. At the other end of the spectrum, Hanon exercises are perfectly okay. I don't think they're bad. They're not going to lead to injury. You don't have to worry about being injured playing Hanon. I mean, anyone who thinks a simple exercise like that is going to injure them really just should stay in bed, not get out of bed in the morning, because you might get injured. Okay, so you're not going to injure yourself playing Hanon. There's no way you can injure yourself. You have to want to get injured to play Hanon. So I'm not one of those teachers that say, oh, you can't do Hanon, it'll injure you, it's bad for your finger. No, that's perfectly okay. I have nothing against that. The problem I have is all those hours spent on these finger exercises when you could spend on like Bach preludes and fugues, you could spend it on Chopin nocturnes, you could spend it on Liszt etudes. You could do a whole lot of things if you just replaced the Hanon exercises with real music, or even with Czerny, something that's better exercises, exercises written by a real piano virtuoso who knew piano technique. What about Liszt's exercises? Franz Liszt wrote a whole huge book of exercises. Why not those? I mean, Liszt was one of the greatest pianists of all time. I'd rather trust him than Hanon, wouldn't you? So, yeah, okay, Hanon exercises are good. In fact, I think they're really good for beginners, in fact, especially beginners. As beginners are learning to use their fingers. That's why I wrote Hanon for beginners. So here's a little book. I also wrote The Well-Tempered Hanon, which is a big, thick book where I transpose all the first 20 Hanon exercises into all the major and minor keys. And I do them with harmonizations in thirds and sixths. So it's very interesting. So I think that if you love Hanon, you might want to just graduate this book and maybe get this book instead, because this is actually much more practical. Sort of a little bit hard to read. I had to sort of cram everything up in the pages here, but if you can find a way of magnifying this, that would be a good book to get. So, of course, I mean, I think Hanon is useful because it led to this book here and it led to this book here. I think Hanon can be useful, but Hanon was not a Franz Liszt. Okay? He was not Franz Liszt. He was not a virtuoso. He wasn't a composer. This is the only thing Hanon left us in terms of composition. No sonatas, no character pieces of any kind, no other etudes, just this book right here. A lot of pianists will also, and teachers will really extol the virtues of this book here, the Hanon book, saying, oh, well, it has all the scales at the end. It has all the major scales and the fingerings at the end. And, well, that it does, but who wants 4 octaves of scales? You don't need scales. I can't even find it. It's in here somewhere. But there's 4 octaves of scales. Okay, honestly, tell me, how many pianists who can play 4 octave scales have to look at the sheet music? Like nobody. If you know 4 octave scales, they're memorized. You don't look at sheet music. So why do you need 4 octave scales printed out in a book? All you really need is 2. So really, all you need is 2 octave scales. Books that print 4 octave scales are wasting paper. All they need to do is really just print 2 octave scales. So you can just get scale books to do what this does, and also it only uses just the white keys. So if you get the Well-Tempered Hanon, it goes into all the keys. It uses all the black keys and everything. So it's only white keys. How can you learn just playing all the white keys? And then if students are given Hanon and they're told by their teachers to practice all the time, they get so used to playing just white keys that when they play real music with black keys in it, they get scared. And they think, oh, black keys, black keys, oh, there's so many sharps, oh. Well, if you start them out teaching them how to learn sharps and flats, then they wouldn't get so scared. So if you just drill this into them all the time, and they're just going to think, oh, it's so easy, all music is just all white keys all the time. And then when they come to black keys, they don't know what to do. So anyway, that's my take on Hanon. I think it can be useful, but do not treat Hanon like a god. Do not revere him like a piano god, because he was not a piano god. He wasn't even a composer. Okay? If you have plumbing problems in your house, are you going to get plumbing advice from an accountant? Somebody who's not a trained plumber? No, you go to a trained plumber. If you want the best piano exercises, what do? You first of all, you find the authors of those exercises and you ask yourself, is this person a great pianist? And do they know piano technique? Are they really a virtuoso? Hanon was no virtuoso. He was not a virtuoso. How many piano students slave away for hours and hours at Hanon thinking Hanon was some great piano virtuoso? He wasn't. Okay, anyway, enough of Hanon. Until the next video.